new conversation. For those of you already on our WhatsApp, just want to please point our mind to the fact that to drop your edition 20, batch 20 of the FM Master started last week. The highly subscribed program. We expect more people to. Just before I start, I just want to be able to point our mind to the fact that the process will continue. Edition 20, by the end of February, the FM Master start recruiting coming up in May. So if you missed out on this program, we are looking forward to expect more people career with FM Diploma this year. Please come on board. To the end of February now, we prepare for the chance process to continue. For those who at the end of February could not join because of money, you could not start it for your direct name. So this is the time if you miss out on this one, whether you start paying now, that's comfortable for your career with the FM Diploma. We've done up to 50% of that now for the May edition. For those who could not join because of money, you cannot start considering your direct that time again, trying to start paying towards the pull-up. Whether you start paying now, I want to give an assurance that May is not going up to make that. We've done up to 50% of the definitely work for the August. So be rest assured that start the program. We know we can to fill the funds down. So it's something to you for free just because the FM Diploma from Max-Migold. We want to make sure that we sustain all of that. That's why we are trying to do our best to match the economy to the cost of running the program. So with that said, I'm going to go into today's risk assessment and management class section. Successfully managing risk to prevent mistakes, which leads to a safer work environment, employees and increased productivity. Risk is in everything that we do in life. Every decision we make, every interaction, every communication, every transaction, every activity, there's a level of risk. Doing nothing, there's a risk. Something unintended consequences come out of that. So the whole idea of risk is coming across something that is not expected. What is that probability that occurrence will happen is about. So in this short period, we talk about how to control the place, talk about risk management techniques, then we're going to look at how to recover from risky situation, how to manage process through communication. Gene Claude, it says to win, you have to risk loss. Nobody ever became anything without taking the risk that he might fail. Okay, so the whole idea of risk. I want to make progress. Risk becomes a natural of that way of that change, that improvement, that achievement. There is always a risk that it fails. But we knew stop it because there's a risk. Will you go on in spite of the risk? Those two questions must be processed mathematically. That's why I'm taking this session. Each person needs to understand exactly the dynamic of risk. How to put measures in place. So not only understand, have a system managing it. Okay. And one of the first things that come across talk about risk is we often misplace definition of between risk and hazard. Risk is not they are related. So if there's a sharp object, if there's something fire on a stone, if there are chemicals, buckets, electricity cables, sockets, they are all hazards. They are all dangerous by their nature. So hazard will exist in nature. Hazard will exist just by its potential. What it is not risk. You see the ocean, river. The water is flowing, quietly and peacefully. Just sitting on the beach and watching the ocean, you can feel some serenity, right? But that ocean that is doing its thing is a hazard. If you go into the water, you don't know how to handle the wave, some kind of shark inside the water. Hungry at that moment, you can see how beautiful water, ocean wave, so beautiful, and suddenly goes from a hazard to a right. So all the things around us, all the life itself that are around us, all built hazard, which means they all have potential to cause harm. So risk is not the hazard. Chance is the chance harm will come out of the hazard. So the fact that I have a made of wood, and a chair that I'm sitting on. These are hard surfaces. These are hazards. But it is not a risk to me, an adult who's gone taking control of development of motor sensors, who can make judgment of height and distance, who can jump and escape and all. It's no longer a risk. But if you bring a 3-month-old baby and you lie the baby on this table, that the baby will roll over and fall face down. So in essence, the hazard, there are things we should learn to live with. So in essence, you walk into an office and the items that to start on the one that when we talk about friends, let's think on how we can procedures for getting things done, so that there are main dimensions. If somebody says, what's the risk that rain will fall? What do we even think? Rain falling. That should be a good thing. There's no risk. We want rain. Don't even too much, right? Now, rain falling. But you see, that rain falling, there's no risk. We want rain too much, right? Good thing for you. Now, that rain falling, that's why it's a bad thing for you. Who are not there at some kind of there are dimensions for us to do it. What's the risk some kind of concrete, all of that concrete, he bought at 6,000 naira per bag. They just wash it for him, right? A downpour. So you see the same all of that concrete, he bought at 6,000 naira per bag, having a very low right to one person. So you see the same occurrence, like impact or severity. Then we have the second dimension, which is called what will be the impact or severity. Then we have the second dimension, which is called what will be the impact or severity. The likelihood of probability, and like in the case of the rain for this of rain falling, the one who wants the weather to be the likelihood of probability might be the same for the two people. The one who wants the weather to be temperature can go down and see it right now, right? And the one who both of them will have the same meant to be washed off if a heavy downpour, because the probability that rain will fall in rainy, both of them will have the same very high. If probability that rain will fall, because the probability that rain will fall is very low. In rainy so even if you are doing a scale of 0 to 3, probability that rain will 0 to 5, 0 to is very low. So even if you are doing a scale of 0 to 3, 0 to 5, in this particular instance, like we established before, the risk will not be the same. What would then determine it will be the same in this particular instance. If rain falls, like we established before, rain risk will not be the same. What would then determine the weather to tempered? If rain falls and the rain and go and take a shower, say thank God, I want this rain, isn't it? So if I'm looking for the negative, and I didn't run into the rain and go and take a shower, I will not find any blessing on this rain, isn't it? So if you're looking for the negative, the guy who just mixed all this concrete that has spent so much money buying anything, and is pouring them, right? Whereas the guy who just mixed all this concrete that has spent so much money buying and is pouring them, rain falling right now. If you ask him what is going to be impact somewhere, rain on a very high scale, now, rain falls now and comes, is going to be just lose all somewhere, on a very high scale, lately. So shower that, so we're that January rain, it's January rain, and so maybe even 3. Maybe there's a high likelihood now that people are planting and people are planting and rain. Because historically we know that this rain comes inside wet dry ground and allows the ground and allows people to plant, right? So my people say that probability is up, that it might happen. That it might happen, even though we're in right? Even though we're in dry season. Now, but the impact will be different. So for Mr. A, it's 1, very low is 1, very low impact, I don't like it, I'll go around. For Mr. B, is 5, to be a total loss of my. So what then is the risk? 4 times 1 for Mr. A, 4 towards 4 times 5 for Mr. B, 5 towards 20. So for the same risk of rain, one man's risk assessment 20 is 20. And the next man's risk assessment says, but how do you put this in context? On a scale of 0 to 5, what is the maximum that can happen risk? The maximum risk that can happen, 5 likelihood of probability, 5 impact of severity, which is 5 times 5, which is 25. 25 is the possible risk on a scale of 1 to 5, right? So if I know that 25 is the possible risk, a risk of 4 out of 25, that's a high risk. That's a high risk. All agree that it's a low risk. A risk of 20 out of 25, that's a low risk. Obviously, it's not a low risk. That's not a low risk. That's not a high risk. So I've used this scenario to think of how risk to be evaluated and assessed. It is not a function of one man's risk assessment. One man's risk assessment 20 individuals and the next man's risk assessment. All agree that.
Calendar and see how we can put each person in your expertise match what we want to do. And so
to pursue a career in human resource and project management, some helpful qualifications include master's degree or bachelor's degree in human resources, business administration or management, professional certifications such as PMP certification and SHR.
This is quite different. You're a judge person. because you have to just take risk for the fun. Just take risk for the fun. Calculated risk. Calculated risk. Analyze. Every risk needs to. You have to know what the maximum risk. What the maximum risk on the scale you are working with. You have to know exactly the risk that you are dealing with. Okay, by paying attention to potential problems, environmental health and success. Anyone that waits for chance is the only one that will be surprised. When things go wrong. You don't wait for chance. You pay attention to potential. Pay attention to things that they are not doing understanding. Not doing understanding. But many people will still don't wait for chance. Don't wait for chance. Pay attention to that you have to envisage and pick on things that can go wrong. All right. So there are physical risks, there are location risks, there are human risks, there are technology risks, there are all kinds of risks. So this is a way to categorize the risks that you are dealing with. If you live in some community where you have to go over a mountain up and down to be able to make a procurement or a purchase or participate in an activity, that physical barrier will have to be considered when taking the decision regarding that particular procurement or decision, right? Because that is a risk. Anything can happen if you have to go through that barrier. And all kinds of risks, like too hot, too cold, flowing water, embankments, buildings not physically strong, not having the right infrastructure, or not built up with the right structural setup to hold the facility and its requirements, can all pose risks. Many of these risks can be tangible, but many of them can be intangible. Take, for example, reputational damage. When somebody slanders you or makes a false publication about you, or picks on something that you have done and makes an alarming broadcast about it that damages your reputation or that of your organization. We may not be able to say this is physical or tangible risk, but in itself, it's risk that can also cause maximum damage, right? Location, these are risks that have to do with how close you are to the things you want to be doing, to your markets, or to your opportunities that you want to tap into. Imagine someone who is trying to take a program in a university and lives in another town and has to come every day to that city to participate in that program. There's a huge disadvantage you have compared to someone who lives in the town or the city of that same university. There are risks around human beings. Humans are so complex. You can say, we're going to do A, B, C, we've all agreed, we've all signed MOU, we've all agreed from our job descriptions and things we're going to be doing. And then you expect that everybody will do their own part. And then what do you get? It doesn't happen. And when it doesn't happen, you are now dealing with the risk of people's omission. Sometimes it's people just going behind your back or to do something opposite than what they've agreed, which is the risk of commission, right? So there are those kinds of, and then there are technology risks. There are risks that have to do with your level of adoption. When others have moved on and you are still in a backward setting technology-wise, you might see yourself dislocated, pushed out of the market. And this thing applies to everybody. Workers who are in jobs, who cannot master new skills on how to handle spreadsheets, how to handle new tools of getting the job done and become unproductive and then get fired, right? It's all part of that process. So there are so many categories many ways you can categorize the risks that you are exposed to, either as individuals or as an organization. One common thread that you will see coming out around this risk management session or this particular topic is the fact that you need to be able to identify risk. You need to be able to identify risk, right? And being able to identify risk means when you go around, when you look at things, when you look at circumstances, when you look at conditions around people, when you look at what you do and the outcomes you are getting, are you able to see the things that they may be okay now? They may be okay now, but can you see their potential, the risk potential in them? And this is usually a little bit, difficult for people who have already built in their mind of a positive mindset of a how would I put it, a God forbid mindset, where you pray, and because you have prayed, everything should work well. You don't use any negative comments. You don't think anything negative.
So for
we have all these
one man's risk assessment,
one man's risk assessment to the point where we no longer see anything that is potentially harmful or risky. We just keep going, and when it happens, some will have the mindset of God gives, God takes. It's not if nothing any man could have done. We have to just accept it as faith or as an act of God. Others will say, "Oh, God, why me? I trusted you. I left this in your hands. I had a positive mindset that you have told me to have." So we allow that religion and morality and the faith that we have to prevent us from doing the things that God has given us the wisdom to do. What you can do for yourself, God will allow you to do it. He will give you the wisdom, He will give you the ideas, He will give you the tools and the resources, He will give you the training and the lessons you need to do it for yourself. So risk management is one of those aspects where we allow, out of a lazy mindset, spirituality and other kind of thinking, prevent us from acting or seeing things that can potentially become problematic. For example, you see somebody is pouring water on the ground and probably mopping very slippery floor. And then everybody just feels that anybody can walk through it and they will not fall. Because God is holding us up. He's protecting us, for example. If you fall, what would you say happened? Is it that you did not know, that you didn't get the wisdom to know that this place is wet? Let me avoid it. Because that wet floor itself is a hazard. But that hazard itself is not a risk. It's not a risk until you walk into it. Until you walk into it. So that's the whole idea. Sometimes we have clutter all around us. We know how to tiptoe out of our spaces and how to tiptoe back into it. We have cables flying all over the place. And we seem to have that mastery of our own clutter. And we are able to live with it. What happens when someone else comes into that space who does not master the maze of how to get around those kind of spaces? What happens to them? They fall, break something, and who do you blame? If you do not actively attack risk, they will actively attack you from you. You have to be the one to go after it. You have to be the one to play that devil's advocate. Identify them and deal with them. Otherwise, they won't spare when it comes after you. Seek out problems before they occur. It requires you to ask many questions. What if? What will happen if? Right? And start thinking about the impacts of different scenarios. When you see people looking ahead, being able to have multiple plans to respond or deal with situations, is because they can do scenario planning. Take out a pen and paper and start asking what will happen if, create a scenario. What will happen if, create another scenario. Create several scenarios and begin to ask which one is more likely among them. You need to create your own response to suit the scenarios that you are creating. And by the way, it's not that you should identify risk only around the things that you have control over. No. You should identify risk around the things that are external to you and your organization as well. Because a lot of times you put on all the things in place based on your own assessment of your own situation. But you have not considered what another man's action, like the government, like the central bank, like the tax authorities, like the inflation in the economy, like the weather and climate, like all kinds of things. If they go in any direction, how will they affect me in my own operation or in my own life and my own business. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. I'm talking about this with a passion because I see a lot of, hear no evil, see no evil kind of mindset leading us into very terrible situations as a people in jobs and in our lives. You have to be prepared for worst case scenario in every situation. Every situation. It's not enough to not think about it. If you have thought about it, is the first step. You make plans to ensure that you can respond. All right. Sometimes, the consequences might be insignificant, minor, moderate, major, catastrophic. These are ways to define your scale. If you're doing your scale of 1 to 5 for probability or likelihood, or scale of 1 to 5 for your severity or impact, this is one way to give each of those scale numbers a definition. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today, Abraham Lincoln. Being in that euphoric mindset of everything will be fine, there's no need to worry, does not remove tomorrow's problems. You have to not only envisage what kind of problems tomorrow will bring, but also amplify that likelihood to the point where you are able to consider worst case scenario and you are able to put plans in place for worst case scenario. Everyone wants to prevent problems before they begin. Everyone will enjoy a safe and smoothly run work environment. Work to prevent problems before they begin. How many times have you thought about that socket that's shaking as FM's or maintenance guy's job? It's not my job. I don't even have to report it. And then you keep using one hand to hold it at the back so that you can plug your thing off or to remove your plug from it because it's no longer firm in the wall. So you are doing that 2 hands, not knowing that your hand can easily slip to some bare conductors at the back and you can easily get a shock. And in your mind, you are telling yourself, oh, I'm very good at this. It's not a problem. I've been doing it every time, right? What if someone else tries it and then gets shocked? What if a child who out of curiosity says, hey, let me see what's going on behind this socket. I've already seen the face of this socket. What about this behind? Let me go and check what's going on and touches one shiny golden looking brass conductor in there. What's going to happen? Who will you say is at fault at that point? Because you felt only your responsibility, you were able to manage yourself. You thought you were okay. Safety is everybody's responsibility. Risk is everybody's responsibility. If you see it, you must report it. See it, you must report it. And this goes for everything that we do in our organization. It's not enough to, because you don't want to ruffle feathers. You don't want to upset anybody. You don't want to do anything that will make somebody feel unhappy. You now see something and you keep quiet. You're smelling something, or it looks like as if gas is leaking, or electric gas smell. Maybe it's just me. Then you quietly walk out to fresh air. You didn't alert anybody around you. How would you describe that kind of behavior? If somebody else has to inhale it first, you go, this place is smelling something. It looks like gas is leaking. Before, why wouldn't you breathe it first to say it out the moment you heard it? Many people are in offices, in public places, in church, and some strange leader will just walk in. Nobody says hello. Nobody asks him or her, anything. Everybody just mind their business. It's near. You see them looking after their own children. Daughter, come. Let me hold you. Somebody's sitting outside the building. What stopped you from either walking up to say hello, good afternoon, good morning, welcome, whatever you came in here for, or calling somebody's attention there. There's a new person that has entered here. Check with him what he's here. We will all have the responsibility for it. If you notice anything, please talk about it. And then in the workplace, we have plenty situations where certain experts, specialists, are the only ones that must know about electrical. They're the only ones that must know about plumbing. So if there is a leak, they're the only ones that know what's happening. Nobody else knows how to isolate the valve. Nobody knows how to switch off a fuse or a circuit breaker to stop a electrical wire that is burning, because the few 1 or 2 persons that That's his job, that's his territory. Nobody, when it comes to a risky situation and that person is not around tomorrow, what's going to happen? So part of managing risk is making sure everybody are trained in everything. Nobody will go and start doing electrical repair tomorrow because they know how to do electrical repair. No. But they will all know exactly where the consumer unit is. They will all know the particular switch they can use to isolate a certain area in case there is fire, electrical fire from that area. They will all know where the valve that connects the hose from the gas cylinder to the cooker if you are smelling something off. It's very important to train people. And that's why we advocate for you to have a toolbox talks on a daily basis where you have that discussion around this is how this is done. If you see water here, this is where to isolate it. Take everybody out, go and check. If you see a smoldering or fire or this is getting hot, this is what you should do. As you are raising alarm, you know exactly what to do. You don't wait until it goes too bad in the guise of, I don't know, it's not my job or nobody taught me how to do it. Take appropriate precautions. There are safety equipment that we can install, like smoke detectors, fire hose reel, fire extinguishers. There are exits that should be planned so that in case one exit is blocked, there's another one. Fire alarms, safety training for everybody that lives or works in a particular space. And then think about how you pass on this information as well. It's very important to plan the training to be fun, make sure everybody wants to participate in it and accept and understand it. In God we trust, all others bring data. You cannot manage risk without working with numbers, without data, right? That's what he's trying to say here. Updated control measures ensure that the work environment is safe for everyone and that it remains safe as changes occur within the organization. There has to be a means of tracking and updating control measures. If I already have control measures in place, I can't leave them as, forever. This is the only way we have to control. So what kind of control measures can we talk about? Control measures can either eliminate, substitute, isolate, or wear protective equipment. So if you take each of these one by one, how do you eliminate a risk? You eliminate it by not doing the activity. Again, in case of the guy that is going to cast concrete, just doing the maths, likely multiplied by impacts for rain, and he's already seeing the cloud, he's already checked forecast, it's most likely rain will fall. Already says, I'm not casting today. I'll leave it for a day when the weather will be okay. You can substitute for a lesser risk. Substitution means changing your method. For example, you can substitute by taking another means of ensuring that you will not be the one to take on the entire impact when it does happen. Isolate is to put controls in place to make the risk more visible and put either mechanical, administrative, or any kind of control in place to ensure that the risk does not make impact. There's no landing for it. But protective equipment is you protecting yourself to take the impacts. So, and this particular PPE thinking is supposed to be your last line of defense. It shouldn't be the first thing you think about when you're dealing with risk. Okay. The needs of the business determine how you develop your business procedures and your control measures. There are no one-size-fits-all control measure for dealing with risk. Risk in your business, you have to look at the needs of the business, look at exactly what kind of impacts every risk will have on the business. And like I did before, one risk might have a different value or different impact on one business, different from another. Okay. And then ask yourself if your control measures are adequate. Have a discussion, surveys, and checklists with users and employees, interviews, tracking the number of. So this is how it works. There are unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. And then there are incidents in the middle of this funnel, and then there are accidents or risks manifesting themselves, at the bottom of the funnel. At the top, the more you are able to identify unsafe acts and unsafe conditions and use root cause analysis to analyze them, the less and less you will get of incidents and accidents. And so by just tracking those numbers below, you can get a reduced risk exposure. By creating rituals that are connected with goals, you will not have to schedule certain tasks. So basically, this is talking about how to identify, how to capture, how to document the risk in an automatic way. In the office today, the HSC officer has put up a QR code and asked everybody, when you see any unsafe act or unsafe condition, just scan this QR code and report it. That's a beautiful approach. That's a beautiful way of getting people to just get interested in reporting it. It's important to take risks, but it's idiotic to take them blindly. Very design. So we'll look at risk management techniques. Management techniques that you use will vary according to the severity of the risk and the current stability of the organization. Talk about reducing the risk, refit a building to prepare for severe weather, sprinkler systems with fire alarms, training programs to get people equipped with the knowledge to deal with the risk. Those will reduce the risk. They will not remove the risk. Transfer the risk is in terms of indemnification. When you award a contract and you say, contractor, please indemnify us. If anything goes wrong, you are responsible. You can get insurance companies to give you bonds and all kinds of insurance coverage. If anything goes wrong, they will take care of the risk. You can avoid it. Just don't do anything. In case you see that the risk is going to be too high, you just scrap the whole idea. Then you can accept the risk. When accepting the risk, you're accepting full responsibility of if something goes wrong. So if you are going to accept a risk, it's a risk that is reasonably valid. You validate it and you realize that the impact is not so strong. You want to take on this risk. In fact, it's one of the particular strategy that simply says, don't sweat it. It's too small, irrelevant a risk for me to worry about. Just like I gave an example of rain falling, and you are actually anticipating it. You are actually looking forward to going to the winter to get a little bit of cold soaking. And then, you've done the risk assessment, is just 4/25. For such, you accept the risk. If I go and dance in the rain or the rain soaks me, I'll likely get a cold, right? It's okay. That's fine. I don't have to take a preventive medication for cold now. When I get back, I just put a blanket on myself and I'll be fine. Or I'll just take vitamin C or something, and then I'll be fine less than 1 day, right? So such a risk is not something that should worry me about. I should just know that I've accepted it. I'm not going with an umbrella. I'm not going with anything. I just want the rain to drench me because I need it. Typically happen by accidents, right? It happened because of careful planning. So when we talk about, some office safety and reporting, it's important to try and prevent accidents in the office. It's equally important to be prepared in the event that accidents occur, right? Everybody is responsible for putting down reports. Just a simple scan and put a note in approach can help to track unsafe acts and safe conditions. But when it comes to an accident that actually happened, there is supposed to be a root cause analysis form filled out to capture it. And then there have to be a response plan. There have to be someone who is responsible for dealing with an accident situation. What procedures will be in place for that person to act needs to be identified. If there are problems to the building, some kind of emergency with the building, how are we going to evacuate? Documented and make sure everybody knows it so that the evacuation plan is understood, so that we don't have anyone left behind. And everyone are trained. It's very important to take this seriously. I talked about it before. Put up some material so that everybody gets trained on the basics of safety around them. It doesn't help to say, I don't know what to do. And so in that confusion, I allow some people to get worse. In the last analysis, front judgment will prevail before canon. The risk assessment identifies the potential losses that the nation faces, as well as severity. He's talking about the business impact analysis. Every time you look at a risk, not all risks will have a business impact. There are some risks that will have business impact. You need to spend time to identify how a risk would affect the organization. The risk of somebody not coming to work, for example, or the risk of an employee losing the money that's meant for a business activity, or some fraud, or some loss of data, a breach of data security in the organization. How will these affect the business? Just making a list of these and doing an assessment of it will help you figure out the kind of control measures you will put in place so it doesn't become a disaster or a danger. And to do this, you need to have, the proper information, reports, research, interviews, questionnaires, conference calls, just basically gather information to be able to put together that analysis. The risk identified in the risk assessment will facilitate the identification of threats. Every time you are doing the risk assessment, we are basically trying to identify risks. If you're able to identify risks, you know everything that can happen to you. Nothing will surprise you anymore. Nothing will come in as a, oh my goodness, I didn't expect this. I don't expect bad things to happen, but I'm taking time to think about all the possible bad things that can happen. And that's why it looks as if I have a very strong mind. It looks as if nothing happens that shakes me, right? That's because, many times, not many people would sit in an airplane, for example, and while the plane is taking off the ground and is doing that bumpy, or it's on the air and it's hitting against the cloud and everywhere is shaking. Start thinking about, okay, what did this plane crash, right? Do I have proper insurance? Do I have certain documentation information I should have done in place? If we all just think about that, we'll do things in a more organized and a more structured way, instead of waiting until it happens and then there is chaos. I always try to turn every disaster into an opportunity. This is something else that not many people, realize. Something happens, they spend all the time mourning and crying and no time to actually think about positive. Now, to keep, into running. Then the disaster recovery. This plan has outlined procedures that need to be followed in the event of disaster. So if the risk ultimately lands and something, bad happens, are we going to say it is over? No. In proper risk management, you need to say, okay, if this happens, take for example the tsunamis that took place in New Orleans and Indonesia many years ago. Those are things that an individual company may not be able to have put in their own risk plan. But they would have in their risk plan that if anything happens that totally wipes this building off, that probably kills many of the staff and only a few are left, that probably does this and that in the organization, there should be a way for this organization to be able to start up and move on again. Just telling themselves that to make them say, you know what, let's do a backup of our data on the cloud on a regular basis, because it's that data that is the lifeblood of that organization. It is the history, the transaction, is everything that will make that organization able to pick itself back up and start going again. Let's back everything up as a way of mitigating that kind of risk. So we invest a little money in cloud storage and everything syncs with the cloud on a daily basis as a procedure. Make it before you need it. Look ahead. What will you need to achieve? Many of us have clear goals. We know what we want to achieve. Sometimes we've not broken it down into milestones. We've not been specific in how we're going to achieve it. We're hoping that some miracle will happen along the way and we would achieve it at a certain time. That's the problem, right? So what would you need? Whether in your life or in your business, in your career, people, facilities, technology, suppliers, make a list and then begin to build on how to have those things in place. Sometimes it's just a network of the right people. Sometimes it's just a savings of a certain amount, because that somehow is very common. So there's, by this year I'll do this, I'll put money aside, but they forget that's not the only thing they need to work towards to achieve it. And as you put your plans in place, you need to always keep checking it is still valid, always keep updating it, always take for example, you're saving towards getting your FNP this year, right? And you were saving 100,000 a month since last year. But between July and now, the dollar has gone from 800 naira or 700 naira to 1,500, right? Which means if you continue at 100,000, you probably won't get it this year because now you're looking at some 2-3 million to get the FNP, right? So what do? You need to retweak that plan and say, how do I get extra revenue so that I can save maybe 200,000 a month instead of the 100,000 that I'm doing right now, right? It's very important to have this kind of mindset towards our plans for the future. Both warm and cold sites. Many companies choose warm sites because they offer more protection than cold sites, but they are less expensive than hot sites. So for disaster recovery, for business continuity, hot, warm, and cold sites are different options companies invest in to have alternative locations that their business can go on. But now in the current era after COVID and what we realized with remote and home work arrangements, most companies have now realized that every employee's home are automatically an extension of the office. So why spend so much money in developing, other sites that will be idle until there's a disaster or an emergency? Why not just, create a fund for investing in everybody's home, get proper economic chairs, get proper internet and power into everybody's home when the need arises, just to ensure that they can keep working. If you treat risk management as a part-time job, you might soon find yourself looking for one. The ability to apply risk assessment techniques in the office will improve safety for employees and the organization. So we've gone through what hazards are, how to identify hazards. We've talked about what the risks are, what kind of exposures, what measures do we have in place? Are they sufficient? Do we need to increase them? The control measures, have we documented them? Are they adequate? So we've seen all of this, and I want us to start working towards having a risk management plan in place and ensure that we can deliver consistent, excellent results for the kind of output that we desire as we plan them, instead of allowing risk and other eventualities take the place of success from us. All right, so that's the end of our session. I would recommend that each of you, subscribe to this training formally. This training is available with certificates on our learning management portal. We have more than 150 courses like this that you can get a certificate for, because there are quizzes, there are questions you go through as you are learning. When you get to the end, you earn a certificate, a beautiful certificate at the end of it for a small fee. Like I announced last week, we are putting finishing touches to the learning management portal where all of these courses will be made available. I will make a big announcement and send you tokens for at least one free course as we move through into the commercial phase of these courses going mainstream. So until then, I want to say if you have questions, comments, please put them in the WhatsApp chat. Max-Migold Facility Management. Max-Migold Facility Management training. If you are not on that chat, can someone please put the facility management training platform link on the chat in all our platforms? Can we do that? The Max-Migold team member. Oh, it's already there. Thank you, Faith. Faith already dropped the link to the WhatsApp group. Join the WhatsApp group. Use a group to chat with us. Ask your questions. I'll be there to respond to all of your questions. If you are on YouTube, I would like the team to also drop the chats on YouTube as well, the WhatsApp group on YouTube chats, so that those on YouTube can also join. We have vibrant discussions around the work we do, around our careers, around the challenges we face. We share with you employment opportunities, training opportunities, and all other volunteer opportunities to upgrade yourself in your field of facility management. You'll meet us here for another fantastic knowledge sharing opportunity. And if you want to get a full dose of what we have to offer in Max-Migold, head over to facilityManagementCourses.com for all our short courses. We have short courses coming up in February and in March and in April, all scheduled in our calendar. And then, head over to promo.facilitymanagementcourses.com.
My name is Osie Egbia here. I'm an architect training. I've been doing that for over 2 years. Quite experienced in the building industry. So we'll be having a good time here together as we run through the course for this evening. I hope everybody at the induction of this program, I'm sure would have told maybe want to probably put their names, their full names and all that. Okay, great. I think everybody's doing that. So I won't have to go through that. So we just go into the program outline. We'll run through the program in 6 modules, and then we'll start with the introduction. We'll look at the need for space planning, look at space planning processes, look at space allocation options, we look at move management, and then we'll consider key constituents for the move process. And then I want to say that the way space is planned always determines its use and its purpose. It is important for facility managers, both the basic requirement different places as it relates to uses if a facility manager, as it helps him or her to know if the space is fully utilized. Now, it's very important for us to understand that every space itself has its particular use and configuration. If peradventure you want to be searching for an apartment and take it to a new apartment to check and look at the apartment, no one needs to tell you that this is the living room or this is the living room. Nobody will need to tell this is the kitchen before you know it's the kitchen. Nobody needs to tell you what the toilet is when you see it. Nobody will even need to tell you where the master's bedroom is and how that works. Because most of the times, when you get into that space, most often than not, you know the use of the space by the way it is configured. It's very important for you as a facility manager to really always know the importance of each space and how the space is configured. If you go into a banking hall now that is empty, it's more likely that you know it's a banking hall. If you go into a church building, it's not a church building because the way it is configured, you know it's a church. If you go into a mosque, you know it's a mosque. Probably if you go into a restaurant also, you probably it's a restaurant because of the way spaces are configured. So it is important for you to always know the use of the space so that you'll be able to manage the space facility manager. So the use of space, also when you're looking at space utilization, the use of the space will let you know exactly how that space needs to be utilized and how to manage the space as it relates to its use. Most of our new generation offices, flexibility is becoming a key requirement as organizations are continually changing the way they work. Facility managers need to become more familiar with the way the organization is moving, and then ask himself, you need to be able to ask yourself some key questions, especially at the beginning of the year, and then probably at the quarter as the quarter kicks off. To the facility and how it's managed. One, you need to ask yourself, is this present space is possible to renegotiate of pricing and other agreements? That's another question you need to ask yourself. You also need to ask, is the space still meeting the business needs and the organization? Does yourself these questions? Because by the time you ask these questions, make it easy for you to understand that space, and by the time you answer questions, to kill up, it does relocate from that space. And once you are doing that presentation, you must come with your